I'm all set up here with the border and I'm ready to draw Tippy the turtle. Now what I want to do to start this drawing is I want to draw the main shape, maybe the largest shape, to get myself going so I can use it as reference for the rest of my shapes. That shape's going to be this one right here, this oval that represents the main part of the head. So what's critical that I need to do is that I need to figure out how big that's supposed to be and where it's supposed to be. And if I get my first shape correct, then everything else is going to work out for me. If I mess up on it, it's going to cause frustration throughout the whole drawing. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at some negative space. And I'm sure you remember the definition of negative space from Art 1, space or shape surrounding an object. So that is what I'm going to do as I draw in this oval for Tippy the turtle. Okay, so first thing I want to do is I want to take a look at the negative space here on the left side, and I'm going to go ahead and make a mark for that, and I'm thinking that's a spot about right here, and I'll just sketch in this vertical sketch line like that. Okay, moving over here to the right, a little more difficult, it's a little further away from my border. So what do I think about that? I'm thinking of a spot that's somewhere about right here, I think would be about right. I'm also checking to see about how far away it is from my reference point. So that's kind of helping me as well as I'm getting started here. Alright, I'm thinking something like this is probably about right. Okay, now the last two are difficult. The negative space at the top and the negative space below it, those are harder, so I really want to take a careful look. Now I need to come down from my top border, and I need to leave enough room for his hat. So what I'm thinking is, I'm thinking of a spot that's about here, and that'll probably leave enough room for the hat. So I'll just mark that with a horizontal line, as you can see. Another difficult one, obviously, is the one here at the bottom, because I've got to leave enough room for his neck and his collar. So what I want to do is I'm going to come down here and I'm going to take a look, and I'm thinking of a spot that's probably about right here, I think is about right. Okay, and so I'll put in a horizontal sketch mark. So as you can see, I've developed this rectangle here that kind of tells me about how big that shape is. Now sometimes students think I'm really slow at the beginning, but if I take my time on my first shape, things will work out a lot better for me. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to draw a tilted oval in this general area. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and sketch that in like this, and as I do it, I want to make sure that my oval touches those marks that I made, and I'm thinking like this here. Once again, when I draw my simple shapes, I want to draw light, I want to draw loose, I want to draw rough. I'm not making any permanent lines. I'm just trying to find the right shape, the size, the position. I'm not worried about anything other than that. Okay, so I'm thinking this type of oval like this. I'm going to go around that a few times, make sure I like the shape of it. And I'm thinking something like that. You know, kind of a tilted oval. Touched my marks. Okay, so if I have this first shape correct, then everything else is going to work out good for me. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and draw in, here's my reference point, and I'm going to draw in this curving line that curves away and up from my reference point to the side of the head. And then I'm going to continue it with a slight curve downward to the left. As you can see, this will be part of his beak, and I'm thinking of a spot about right there. And I'm going to have that go just a little bit outside my shape, something about like that. Okay, nice curving line, pretty much right through my reference point. Alright, now I'm just going to take that from here and just going to bring it up and connect it to the top of my oval, like this. And one thing I'm noticing as I'm drawing this is that I'm very pleased with the negative space between this beak and my border. I think I'm pretty much in the right spot. Alright, moving on. Now I'm going to sketch in his mouth. So what I'm going to do is take a look at my reference point. I'm going to come down this line and I'll put a mark about right here for where the mouth is going to start. Then I'm going to continue down this line and I'm going to put a mark about right here where the mouth touches that line right there. So I've got those two marks. And then I'll just kind of sketch this curving shape, noticing how it's going outside my oval, and I'll bring this out maybe about there, and then I'll just connect that back like that, and I've got the mouth. Of course, you're noticing how the nose sticks out further than the mouth, and so that's looking pretty good to me right there. Okay, now I'm going to continue in this central area, and I'm going to use my reference point once again to help me, and I'm also going to draw by comparison, comparing the new thing I'm drawing with other things that I've already drawn. Okay, so next what I want to do is I want to put in his cheek. And I can see that touches just about, right here. I'll just put a little mark to start that cheek. I'll come up this line, comparing it to my reference point, and I'm thinking of a spot about right there as well. Okay, then I'm just going to sketch in nice and light this oval for his cheek, and I just draw that super light as I start. You can barely see it, and then I just adjust it just a little bit, going around it again, making sure that I like the shape of his cheek. Okay, and I think that looks pretty good. And once again, I think I've got that in the right spot compared to my reference point, compared to his mouth, compared to this curving line. Okay, that looks good. Next thing, his eye. So once again, I'll draw by comparison. I'm going to put a mark on his cheek. About right there. And then I'll come down on the cheek and I'll put a mark for the other side of his eye. About right there. So I know how wide it is, and then it's really easy for me to see that it's going to go all the way up and touch the top of my oval. So I'm just going to go ahead and sketch that in now. It's, like I said, it makes it easy when I know where I'm going to. And in this case I can see I'm going right up there to the top of it, and then I'll do the other side like this. Round it at the top. Once again, keeping my drawing light, loose, rough, no dark lines, no finalized lines. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, next thing I'm going to put on a shape for his eyebrow. So I'm going to come down this eye, and I'm thinking of a spot maybe about right there. That looks about right. And then on the other side, it's not quite straight across, it's a little bit further down. So I'm going to take a look at that, and I'm going to bring this down just a little bit right there. Okay, so I know the two sides of it, about right there. And then I'm going to take a look, and I'm going to notice, of course, that it's going to go a little bit above my oval, thinking of a spot about right in there. Okay, so I'm going to draw that in. Just as a curve, I'll come up, I'll curve, I'll hit my mark right there. Here's one side of it. I'll come up again on this side. I'll curve. And there we go. I've got the shape for the eyebrow. So once again, what I'm doing is drawing by comparison, comparing the new thing that I'm drawing with something else that I've already drawn on this piece of paper to make it work out for me. Okay, next thing, I'm going to go ahead and put in his other eyebrow, which is on the other side of his head, and I see it just as this little bump right here. Starts about right there. How wide is it? I'm going to come down my oval to a spot about there, and once again it's just like a half oval bump right there. That looks pretty good. Let's go over that just a little bit darker so you can see it. But again, I'll remind you, keep your drawing light. And a lot of times on these demonstrations I end up drawing darker than I would really want to, so that it kind of shows up on the camera. Okay, continuing. Now I also see over here we've got this bump that's kind of on the back of his head. I'm going to see where that's going to be. It's going to start right at the top of the eye. It's going to come through this eyebrow, about there. Then I'm going to stop, and I want to figure out where it touches on the back of his head. So I check my oval, check my curving line. I'm going to come up, and I'm going to put a mark. It's about right there. And I always like to know where I'm going to start my shape up here, where I'm going to end. That makes it easier for me. So I will bring this down with this curve, and I'll just connect it to my mark. And that gives me the bump on the back of his head. Lost my oval a little bit in here, just kind of showing you that again right there. Okay, let's put on the brim of the hat. So the brim, I'm going to mark it right here where it touches the eyebrow shape, bump on his head. So I'll mark it there. I'm going to check my negative space for my border. I'm going to let my border help myself. And I'm going to put a mark there. I want to be really careful here at the top, and I'm going to come down for negative space. How much negative space is there above the brim? I'm thinking of a spot right there. So that kind of gives me a spot to go to. Alright, so I'll start here, and I'll draw upwards, hit my mark, curve that brim of the hat, curve it, hit the top of it. Okay, and then I'll stop there for a moment. And then I'm just going to check over here that I need to make it hit right there, really close to his eyebrow shape like that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and draw this curving shape like this. I'll just curve that up. I think I need to go just a little bit higher right there. And I'm thinking right there. Okay, now I want to make sure I've got some nice curves. I don't want my lines to be too straight. I'm thinking something right there. Okay, good. Alright, now let's put on the big shape for his hat, for the back of his hat. Now that's going to touch my brim about right here. So I'm going to put a mark right there. And of course, checking my negative space, it's fairly close to the top of my border. So I need to be in this general area here. I'm going to come over here to my right border. I'm going to let my border help me again. I'm going to make a mark for some negative space right here. So the back of that hat, quite close to my border. Okay, then I want to know where it's going to end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this curving line. I'm going to come down my oval shape, and I'm thinking to come to a spot. It's about right there. I'm going to start right here. I'm going to hit over here and here. Okay, and I just need to draw kind of this nice curving shape. I think I'll start here at the bottom this time. And I'm going to come like this. I'll draw upwards. I'll hit my mark. Got some good negative space on the right. Okay. And then I'll go back here to the top. I'll start, hit my spot for negative space at the top, coming down. Once again, I keep that line really light until I'm sure that I've kind of got it. I'll go over that maybe again so you can see that. And we've got the nice shape of the hat right there. Alright, just need to finish up with his neck and his collar, turtleneck. Alright, so once again I'm going to draw by comparison, let some things help myself to get this in the right spot. Okay, so I'm going to use the bottom of the hat, coming down my oval, and I'll put a mark about right there, and that's where I want the neck to end. Okay, then I'm going to come down from my mouth, coming down this oval shape, and I'm thinking of a spot about right here. That looks about right to me. Okay, now when you sketch in the neck, what you got to notice is that here on the left side, this line is significantly longer than it is over here on the right side. So my right side, the line is only about that long. Okay, good. Then over here, I'm going to make it a little bit longer, and I'm going to bring that down about like that, as you can see. Okay, then I'm just going to connect those, and I want to make sure that's a bit of a curve, not straight, and I'll connect that towards that shorter neckline, right there. I think that looks pretty good. Okay, last thing I need to do his turtleneck, his collar. And it looks really three-dimensional because we can see the top of it and we can see the side. So what I want to draw by comparison once again, is I'm going to sketch in this oval shape for the top. It's in this general area, but instead of just drawing it, I'm going to make a couple marks to make sure I get it in the right spot. Now I can see it's going to cross about right here. I'll put a mark right there. It's going to go a little bit above the neck, like about right here. Have a mark here and here, and then at its furthest point away from the neck, it's probably somewhere here. Okay, so this general area right here is where I've got this oval, and you can see me kind of starting that using those marks to help me know about how big it is. Now I drew that super light. You can just barely see it, so let me work on that a bit. I'll go over that a little bit more with you. Okay, so here I go. Here's the side of my oval. I want to make sure it's curving. And I've come down here, I've hit my mark. Okay, I'm going to come here and draw through my oval. And then exiting the oval about right there where I put my mark. And I'll get that curving around and downward. Okay, now that's about the shape of my oval. Now I like to go over that, make sure my oval is, rather symmetrical, meaning the same on both sides. I'll just go over that so it looks good to me like that. Okay, last thing I want to do is I want to put on the end of the turtleneck. I'm going to check my negative space here at the bottom. I'll just make a mark for my spot for me to go to, maybe there. And I'll check my negative space again over here, and I want to be about this far from my right border. Okay, that gives me a spot to go to. I'll just sketch it in. So I'll come down off the oval, make sure my line is slanted, and it's not quite straight. There's a little bit of a curve into it. I'll come down, hit my mark right there, quite close to that. And then I'll come down like this again, curving, hit my mark, and then I want to make sure that this last line I'm drawing is curving about at the same curve as my oval. So I'm thinking like this right there. That looks about right to me. And there it is, simplified shapes for Tippy the turtle. Once again, I think if I take my time on my simplified shapes, if I'm patient and careful, then it ends up being a lot less frustrating to draw, because now I know where everything is. I've got my size, got my proportion, and I'm now ready for the details.